Ready to roll?
Recording in progress.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today's Daf Chav Zayin. We left off, we got to the Mishnah on top. And away we go. Hamaydi get the Ovid Heimenu Umatzo. So one who was sent to go ahead and bring a get, and he temporarily lost it. So matzah the altar, if he finds it immediately, and we'll define at the end of today's daf what that means, then kosher. Then he can go ahead and use it. We're not concerned it belonged to somebody else and it get mixed up. Then he can go ahead and do it. But if it was day or a certain amount of time period afterwards, it was considered to be a long time afterwards, not la altar. Then puzzle, then it's no good because perhaps it could have been someone else's get. Matzah b'chaviso b'duzkama. So if they find it in these certain objects or utensils, which the Gemara will explain at the top of tomorrow's daf, imakiro, then if you can go ahead and recognize it by a simanim, some sort, then kosher. Then the get is kosher. We assume that it is his, and therefore the get can be given. Now, we'll soon get there. We'll get there because we'll soon see that the people with the same name. Right, like I said, Menachem Mendel to Chaim Mushka of Crown Heights, right? So, right, it's not specific.
Yeah, kind of bowing.
Zok the Gemara, right? Or right, Yoel and Williamsburg, right?
Shimon
and then the Heights.
This one.
So three at the top. So we'll ask a kasha from another Mishnah. If one finds any of these documents, right, the emancipation documents, or most importantly in our case, Gitei Nashim, or some sort of a documentation of Beis Din, Gitei Nashim, Harei ze lo yachzir. You do not go ahead and return it. Oh, I see a divorce document, found it on the ground at the park. I'm going to go ahead and return it. Oh, I know the guy's name or the woman's name. You should not go ahead and return it. Because we'll say that perhaps the guy had it written and he never intended to give it to the man, to his wife, and then he lost it. We're at Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, right? Then he lost it, so then it was never given to her. So he can't go ahead and give it to her. He can't give it to him because perhaps he gave it to her. And maybe she was holding on to it until she, or in other words, she would only, if he would get his hands on it, he would say, "Oh, this is proof that after I gave it to her, that basically the ksuba or something was paid up. So therefore, we don't want to give it to her. We don't want to give it to him. You don't give it." So that's what the mashmos of the Mishnah is. Hareza lo yachzer, because perhaps he changed his mind and it was never meant to be given. Mashma over there, if you do ask him and he says give it, then nice, then you can go ahead and give it. You can deliver this get, give it to the woman. And even if it's after a long period of time, and i.e., so why aren't we worried about, right? Why are we worried about if the guy says yes, give it to my wife? Maybe it was another get, and therefore it was written for the same names, and it wasn't written lishma, so you can't go ahead and give it to the woman. So how could that Mishnah be mashma if the husband agrees, yes, go give it, that we're not concerned for another person with the same name? So right. One is a place, if it's an area where caravans come, there's multiple people there, so then it's very possible for it to be somebody else's. If it's not a place where the multiple people come, thank you, then we'll assume that it is his, and therefore that's the case if he says, go ahead and give it. And even if we say it's an area where people come, that's when there are the same names. In other words, let's say the guy's name was Yosef ben Shimon in the city, and there's another Yosef ben Shimon in the city, and they had the same wives. So maybe that's only if we know. So Mark asked before, just look at the names, right? So if it's known that there are multiple people with that name, then you go ahead and we cannot assume. But if it's known that we don't know the others, then even if there's caravans are coming there, even if it's after, it's not la'alter, right? They can say, hey, deliver it. Because if you don't say this, that there's a chiluk between Shnei Yosef and Shimon be'ir achas, then kasha deraba adaraba, right? You'll have a contradiction in two different or terutzim of psak of Rabbah, which is what? Second,
Wow.
So what was the case of Rabado? The Gita the Yeshef Medina. The one time there was a get that found by the Beis Din of Rav Huna, Vavik Sivei, and it was written on this document or this get. Shvirei Masa de Arachis Nara, right? It was in the town of Shvirei on the river of Arachis. The Amar Rav Huna, and Rav Huna says, you can't go ahead and deliver because maybe there's two different towns with the same name along the river. So I was about to little example of Springfield, right? So you can't go ahead and give it. So Rav Chisda Rabba says, go ahead and look into this matter. This psak is correct that you can't go ahead and give it. The Orsa in the evening, he's going to answer me, Rav Huna, he'll ask. So Rabba went out, learned the sugya, and he found the Tanan. The Mishnah says, Tol Maisa based in, Hareza Yachzir. If something was a Maisa based in, then you can go ahead, then you can return it, right? So over here, Rabba is saying you can actually go ahead and return this document to the get. We're not concerned, like over there, that two towns are the same thing or two people with the same name, right? You're allowed to go ahead and return it.
To the base.
Or even to the husband and the wife, to the names on it. So the place of Beis Din is there's a lot of caravans that come in and out there, right? So you just said before you're not allowed to go ahead and return something if it's if the caravans are there. And he says over there you can go ahead and return it. So Alma and then, so you must be that the reason over there why you said is because the names in the document, even though caravans were found there, it wasn't that the names in the document were not names that were common. It were not names that nobody else had those same names. Therefore, you can go ahead and return it. Right? They knew everyone in the village and no one else in the village had the same name. So therefore, it was okay. And Abid Rabbi Uvda Ba'al Gita and Rabbi had a mice with the Gita. The Ishech, they kisni b'Pubadisa. He found it by the flax house in Pubadisa, Kishmaitse. So he ruled over there. Like his the halacha, they can go ahead and basically return it if there was not huchzaku shnei shnei Yosef and Shimon Beir. And Hikadam, what does it mean? The duchta heicha dedara kisna. Some say it was a place where people soaked their flax. Yafa got the huchzaku, and even though there were people with multiple names, it was not common for a caravan, and therefore we're not chayshesh. And some say the there was a place where they sold flax, and it was not known to be the same name. And even though, despite the fact there are caravans there, you can still go ahead and return it because it was not known to have two Yosef and Shimon's over there in the town.
You return the husband and give it to the wife, right?
So in this case, even if he says to new, you can go ahead and you can give it to her. Right, because he's saying, and we're not concerned that it was a different divorce document, right? And so Rabbi Zera,
wouldn't it be safer to give it back to the husband whose name is it, rather than to the wife? Because just in case we retracted it or it was designed not to be given.
Right. So in this, right. So but we're talking about a case where he says to new. We're talking about the case where he says to new. Remember, the original case was Hamevi get, right? So one who was an actual shaliach, he was supposed to go ahead and give it, and then he lost it, then he found it. So his job was supposed to go ahead and give it. So if you find it,
are we talking about the same person who lost it?
No. If it's found, if the husband says, "Oh, you found the get to new," you can give it to her, right? So he can go ahead and give it to her. We're not worried because the concern is even if the husband wrote a get, and he wants to give it to her and he loses it.
Right.
And another get is found that wasn't the one he wrote, it was for somebody else, and that one was given to her. It's no good because it was not written Lishma. So over here, the question is, are we concerned that this is a get that was written for somebody else, and now this husband basically wants to use it for his purpose? So we're all into our case where he says give it. And Rabbi Zera, so that was we asked. I'm sorry, well, we don't know what. No, we're saying so that was what we said from the Mishnah over there. It says if you find it, you shouldn't return it, right? If you find the Maisa Beis, you don't return it. But it sounds like because he might have changed his mind, he didn't do it. But if the husband says the diuk we want to say was, but if he says give it, then you're allowed to give it. So then we said, it's a contradiction with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says you don't give it if it's not the altar. And then we said, okay, it's a question of, do we know if there's another person with the same name or not?
Right.
And so that was a kasha for the Mishnah. And Reb Zera, Rabbi Masnisa, and a brisa. He actually asked from a brisa. And then he answered. So tonight with our Mishnah, maybe give the Abadi man, a person, a shliach, is given a get, and he lost it. If he found it, quote unquote, immediately, as we said, we'll define it in the end of today's daf, then kasher, then just go ahead and continue giving it to him. Blah. But if he lost it for a longer period of time, then it's possible because we're concerned that it was somebody else with the same name and it was not written lishma for this particular person's wife. Kash from a brisa, matzah get isha b'shuk. If one finds a get of a woman in a shuk, bisman bal moide. When the husband says, yes, I already went ahead and I gave it to her, that's hers, she must have lost it. With documents, then yachzer isha. You can go ahead and return it. Ain't about moide. If the husband says, no, oh yeah, good thing you found it because I was right and I changed my mind, then lo yachzer. Lo lezev, lo lezev. Not to him, not to her. We don't give it to him because maybe he's trying to trick it. Maybe he did give it to her, and he'll say you gave me back the get because I was I went ahead and I paid. So over there, lo yachzer, lo lezev, lo lezev. Bisman, but the deal over there is bisman shabal moide. But we see over there where the husband says, oh yeah, let's just give it. Moide mias yachzer you can give it to the woman. Vafilus man meruba. And it sounds like even if it was a long period of time, you can go ahead and give it to the woman. It's a contradiction with our Mishnah, who seems to say the only time period you have is the altar immediately. Well, Mashani, and over there, Reb Zera gets theirs. Or we answer Kamba Makom Sheres Mitzuyas, Kamba Makom Shena Sheres Mitzuyas. When's the place where we said if even after a longer period of time can return it? It's when there's no caravans, it's not a busy area. But if it's a busy area, then people come. And some say some say that even with the caravans, it's only if there are no two people with the same names. In other words, the same exact as Rabbah explained. Some say no, even though there are caravans there, even though we don't know the same name, you still can go ahead return it. Lowly Hadar, you still can't return it. The Rabbah argues with the Rabbah. In other words, even Rabbah says this caravans only work if we know there's multiple names. But if we say no, some say even if you don't know the same name, if there's caravans, then there is a possibility that there is someone you just didn't know about. Now, I understand why Rabbah did not ask like Reb Zera from a brisa, rather he chose to ask from a Mishnah, because it was better to ask from a Mishnah. Mishnah is better. Ella, Reb Zera, but according to Reb Zera, who asked him a brisa, my time why didn't he ask from the Mishnah of what we that we brought originally, of where he said over there, if a person found any of these things based in, right? We said lo yachzir because he might have changed his mind. Mikatani im Omar Tnu Noisni Vafilas Mameruba. Does the diuk now does the Mishnah Beferish say it was only a diuk? Does it say that if he says give it even after a long period of time, Dili Omar Tnu Noisni Kedekaim al altar? Maybe what the Mishnah means is, if the husband says give it, you could give it with, assuming, or only if it was done le'alter. But maybe if it was, even if it was Mamaruba and the husband says nice, maybe we don't listen to him, and therefore it would be just like a Mishnah. Therefore, Reb Zera did not want to ask from that Mishnah because it was a very easy way to deflect the question. And he chose to ask from the Bryce. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar Kigoy the company Aiden the Eilan Chasanu Ella Al Get Echad Shal Yosef and Shimon. You know why you give it? You can give it a long period of time because if you find the witnesses. The witnesses says, yes, we only signed for one Yosef and Shimon in the city. So there's no chashash if our names are on it, right? And you're asking us, we only signed for this, Yosef and Ben Shimon Greenstein, right? I didn't sign for a different Yosef and Shimon Goldberg, right? I didn't do that. See, hachi, that's the case. What's a chiddush there? Right? If the witnesses say that they only signed for one get and it was this specific couple, what's the question? So Moses said, maybe, right? The two witnesses signed said, was Avram ben Yitzchak and Yitzchak ben Avram, right? There's two people, and maybe there's two other people. I didn't mean to say like the same names, right? So, right, Yehuda ben Shimon and then the Yisachar ben Zvulun, right? And maybe there's another set of this people witnesses the same, so could have coincidentally had the same names of witnesses signed the same names of married couples. So maybe to be chayshish for that, Kamash Lo, we're not chayshish for that. If the witnesses say, hey, we only signed for one Yosef and Shimon in the city, and it was this one, then we can go ahead and we trust them. Rav Ashi Amar going to Kamar Nekev Yesh Li B'Tzad Ois Ploinis. The Havile Simon Mufak. There was a hole on the document. Is there a hole right above one of the letters in the get? And they said, yeah. So yeah, that was that was the get. And therefore, you can go ahead and give it. The Dafka B'Tzad Ois Ploinis. The Dafka, he says next to this letter, this word over there, the Havile Simon Mufak, which is a Simon Mufak, which is a not just a general simon, but something extremely specific. About Nakabiyam, if he just says there's a hole in the get, so that's something more common than lo. Then that would not be effective to go ahead and allow that get to be used, because it could be that if simanim were not deraisa, it was only derabanan, so then a general simon, we allow them normally to be used because based and could allow derabanan, because the hefker, when it comes to monetary cases, hefker based in hefker, they can make money hefker to give one party to another. So when it comes to gittin, maybe not gittin. When it comes to shtaros, maybe a regular simon, but when it comes to gittin, which is ishus, so therefore they said only not just a regular simon, but it has to be a simon mufak. It has to be something like, by a specific letter, which is a specific simon, not just there was a hole in the document. And Rabbi Rechana Irkis like Gita b'midrasha, he lost his get to the base medrash, and Omar isimana isli. So he says, if anyone finds it, I have a simon. And Megavai, I have a simon. And Tvias Aina, he's a Megavai. Also, now that there's something called Tvias Aina. I can recognize it. Someone who's very familiar, right? He knows what it is. He might not be able to go ahead and this is my baseball mitt, right? People know their baseball glove. There's a million Rawlings, right? But Tvias Aina, this is this is my glove, right? It has the everything is like that, right? So therefore, so he's saying, it's not necessarily a simon, but I have Tvias Aina. So they returned it and they found it, but they don't know if it was because he only had a regular simon, and the regular simanim is deraisa, and therefore a simon something is recognized by just a standard simon, could even a deraisa you can return the get, or mishum tvias ayin, or because of tvias ayin he recognized it, but dafka tzibur rabbanan, but yish b'yamalo, and dafka only because it's tzibur rabbanan, only a talmid chacham, right, who we trust his recognizing something, but not a standard individual. So we say, only if it's done on the altar, then you return it to imlav. If not, then pasul. If it's not immediately, then you don't. So about ezi shalal altar. What's saying it's not immediately? So Rabbi Nassim Amar Shasa Kadesh Davar Shaira Batishra. Right. In order that basically there's enough time for a caravan to come and then to be there, and therefore basically allowing somebody else with the same name to lose it there. If you have someone standing there watching, no one else came there the entire time, whether it's for an hour or it's for a day, whatever it is, someone's standing there, that's considered to be lealter. Still watch. That no one remained over there, right? That's considered lealter. And Rabbi Amir Kadei Lichtav again, it's actually a standard time. It takes an hour to write a get. So if a get is left out for an hour, it's okay. Rabbi Yitzchak says no, it's only 7 minutes because that's the amount of time it takes to read. I just made up that number, 7 minutes, right? Others say some say the amount of time it takes to write and to read. And even if it's left there, simanim, and there are simanim on the document, me'idin Allah, you can go ahead and testify about the simanim on the get to go ahead and return it to the husband, and or allow to the shliach to go ahead and deliver it. Dami nekav yesh ba b'tzad ois plain is only the case where he says there's a hole on the next to one of the letters. But he can't just say on the entire document, it was Dami Aruch V'Gut, so it was long or it was wide or whatever it is. That's not a description. The description is there was a hole by the third gimel on the line. Matzah kosher b'kis, if you find it, let's say it was tied to a b'kis barniki, right? There's some sort of wallet or pouch or something to bows or a ring on it, which is a simon oshamatza ben kelav, or he finds it amongst his utensils, right? The shaliach, right, or in his house. Then afilus mamruba, even if it was a long time, then kasher, because we can say it was his. And anytime we'll just get to the Mishnah. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha halacha is shalosha adam sham, right? The halacha is sincerely altar as long as nobody else passed over there. And Rabbi Rechana Amar Rav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel halacha shalover adam sham, right? Then that nobody, not that someone remained there, but rather that nobody walked there. So Leiva Mar Halach Kamar, Umar Halach Kamar. Why don't they just quote the names, right? We just listed, those who said it, right? One is the Shita of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, right? And the other was Rav no, that was Rosh Hashanah, right? Another one was the Yeshayim, right? So why don't you quote that way? Right? Why did you have to say the specific? So the right answer is Mishum Dafuchaluhu, because some people switch around who said what, and therefore some people might have learned that the Acherim said the other one, and therefore instead of doing that, you also have people have to know which Amora said what. We'll just say specifically either no one passed there or there was someone remaining there the whole time. And matzah b'chafisa b'delus kama samai chafisa. What does it mean? It was found in a chafisa. Amar Bechana. Chamas katana. So it's like a small, it's a small little, like a what's it called? A cantina flask made out of a hide, right? Omai duskama. And what is a duskama? That is a tlika desabi, right? It's like a box that the older people used to do to put their smaller trinkets in there. And therefore, if it was found there in one of these items, then you could assume it was the same husband and wife, and you can go ahead and continue delivering the get. We'll stop here. Everybody have a wonderful day and enjoy the beautiful sun.